Hi everybody, my name's Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, this is just an unbelievable opportunity for us. This is a time of such potential, of such actualization, to come to a real experience of the nature of who we are, of our connection to each other, to every living being and every living thing on this planet and the planet itself, and to come into a recognition of what we call on Bridging Heaven and Earth the oneness, dedicated to the oneness, dedicated to that one experience that people call God. And as we look around, this planet and we see decay of old ways and decay of old paradigms, and a crumbling of systems that really haven't served us, not in the way of serving the love, of healing the heart of the planet, of us being in recognition of the truth, of who we are, of that we're that unconditional love in motion. And the opportunity is so available now that we would be foolish not to reach out and not to open our hearts to that potential, to that actuality. For so long, we as humans on this planet have had this deep-seated hunger to be children of God, to be in love, to feel love and share it, to come into every day with a joyous recognition, and to proceed in this life just with great joy and passion and creativity. And so much of us are not given that opportunity for one reason or another, because of systems on this planet that no longer serve us, systems on this planet that aren't made to serve the love. They're made to serve fear, they're made to serve greed. And as we are given this opportunity, let it be a prayer in our heart to be open, to take the opportunities that are clearly given to us every day. If we know ways of reaching into that recognition, of reaching into that love, if we have tools or techniques or teachers, be open, calm, and the answer is ultimately within us. So once we can recognize that truth, to drop into that recognition within us, inside us, and come together and make this earth the Garden of Eden it was meant to be, and it is going to be. We have no choice now, that the time is now. And we know it. We know it as a species. We can feel the momentum building. We can feel the energies of love and tolerance and cooperation and collaboration and creativity in waves coming and growing, in a way, a tsunami of love, overtaking the old ways. And we should embrace them. And tonight's guest has dedicated his life to the embracing of love, to the embracing of unconditional love, and the teaching of that, and the vibrating of that, and the sharing of that. Michael Tamura, who you know has been on Bridging more than any other guest, because we value his contribution, we value his gifts, we value his dedication, his passion, his creativity, his joy. He's revered around the world as a master teacher, a life coach, a visionary healer. He's a clairvoyant. He's a pioneer of spiritual healing and psychic development, the author of an extraordinary new book, You Are the Answer, and it's just circulating the world, giving that energy, giving that vibration. He awakens souls to their soul purpose, and that's what his life is dedicated to. And for us to be open to that and to come to that bridge now, to come to the place where it's like, okay, how do we go from here to there? How do we go from fear to love? How do we go from darkness to light? And Michael's presenting tonight, I'm sure, with ways and tools and techniques and methods and a joyous way for us to walk those steps and to come into that love. And we have two extraordinary videos of someone who is one of the brightest beings that I ever had experienced on this planet. She's no longer in a physical body. This musical enchantress, Abigail, who was on Bridging a lot of times early on in our seasons, and she was just too bright for this world and left her body. But we did a special on Abigail, actually is available on Google or YouTube, and it's called Bridging Heaven Earth Presents Abigail, a musical enchantress. So if you ever want to see the whole thing, it's an hour show. And also, as most of you know, we're in the middle of this extraordinary healing art project that came as a dream, it came as a vision to reach out to the world and to offer an opportunity for anyone who's interested to create a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. And it came as that if you had all these incredible, creative, inspiring people of any age, any race, any religion, anybody, it's infinite, it's inclusive, everybody is welcome to join us. If all these people, in whatever way they created, whatever they meditated, whatever they picked up a brush or a piece of glass to create, to manifest, if they produced a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth, it would be like a healing and an acupuncture for the planet as these people vibrated that energy. And tonight we have two pieces of the almost 200 pieces that have come in from all over the world, from Felix de Quesada and Catherine Buchanan, two extraordinary pieces, different, but the energy of that unconditional love, the energy of that collaboration, the energy of that creativity, you will see, you will feel, and you will know. So please join me in a short meditation, then we'll have the first Abigail video, and then we'll have Michael with us. So please join me in a short meditation. Okay, so the first video I'm going to show is Abigail from the video we did at Bridging, Musical Enchantress, Where I Come From, all written and performed by Abigail. It's a chance for us all to just come together and feel the love and share it. So Abigail, enjoy.
Challenged before, sure I have. Walked on my hands and knees and stood up, climbed to the top of the tree and jumped off. Oh, but I've never been challenged like this way before. This wanting more, but it's okay, life goes on. Where I come from, we don't deny what we feel. Where I come from, we know that love is real. Where I come from, we open up and be real. Where I come from, I realize as I'm walking out the door, I got me, I don't need anymore. I got my feet on the ground and my heart all around, and my mind is down now. Ooh, ooh la 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 la. Ooh la 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 la. Ooh la 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 la. Where I come from, we don't deny what we come from. We know that love is real where I come from. We open up and be real where I come from. I get this feeling like I wanna get close to you. It'll pass in a moment or two. I'll just ride it like a wave. I'll be brave and move on till you're gone and my mind is back again. Feeling through. That's all you let me do. You just sit there being you. Don't worry about me, I'll be okay. Surely you'll learn. She'll be there and it'll be your turn. Then you'll feel what it feels to be real to another. Who's walking out the door, hey.
Hi everybody, welcome back. So that was Abigail. She's really just a wonder. If you want to see an hour show of all Abigail singing, Bridging Heaven and Earth presents Abigail, a musical enhancement on Google, on YouTube. And the incredible piece you're seeing between Michael and I is Red Zebra by Felix de Quesada. He's a fusion artist, a great friend of Bridging. He's actually here in the audience tonight, and he did this extraordinary piece as one of these just manifestations of love that have been coming from all over the world as a healing the heart of the planet, as a healing for the planet, as an acupuncture for the planet. And anybody who wants to, is moved in any way to have that intent to collaborate with us in that way, we'll put them on the show. We have art project shows. We have a beautiful art gallery, Heaven to Earth Art. Join us. It's about the love. So, Michael, again, you're here. So great to have you.
Thank you.
Really.
It's great
So how do we go from here to there? Let's get to it.
From here to there, right?
From here.
Yeah, Bridging Heaven and Earth.
Yeah. How do we do
with
it?
the artwork you've been doing, art has always been a bridge between heaven and earth, between spirit and the body, it's the medium, right? When we do artistic expression, it's considered the medium. And then now, in the psychic world, mediums are becoming much more accepted on TV and everything else, being the medium between the world of spirit as those of us who put the body down and depart, so to speak, and communicating with those of us who are still in the physical. And so everything has been really about this bridge between heaven and earth. And, with the new president, new election, everything, and people are really excited. There's a lot of more hope in the world, and what are we going to do where are we going to go with this? And everybody wants change, right? That's part of what was the whole slogan. And what is the change that's coming? What kind of change do we want to make in the world? And how do we make that change? Well, everybody's talking about the economy, they're talking about the war, they're talking about all of these things that's already happening in the world. But the real change, to make that, we really have to first, of course, look within ourselves. But in the world, we really have to look at children. We really have to look at the young people, right? Because that's how the world is going to change. We can start to change things in the daily life here, but if we continue to neglect and abuse children and not pay attention to what's going on for the soul that's coming into this world, do you remember when you came into this world? How things were and how people treated you, right? And so as a spiritual being, when we come in, we're tremendously aware, tremendously, we can't be anything but spiritual. And what happens to us? What happens to the most of us who start our lives going, wah, wah, and have, we need people to change our diapers and feed us and everything. And yet, within a very short time, most people forget. They go to sleep. They start to forget who they are and for what purpose they've come here. I've been fortunate that, when I was a child, when I was a baby, I knew who I was, and yet I always felt really strange when people would interact, adults who seemingly love me, and they feel they do, and they're not abusive or anything like that, yet they didn't see who I was. They were talking to this body. They're talking to this baby body, and they didn't recognize the soul that was functioning in it. And so what happens when people don't recognize the soul? Well, it becomes too painful. It becomes, times when you're by yourself, you don't feel as lonely as if you're surrounded by a whole bunch of people and nobody's communicating with you, nobody recognizes who you are and what you're going through. And that's a lot more stronger feeling of loneliness, right? And for most people. And so we live in this world of 6.5 billion people, and how much communication is there? People talk a lot at each other, they make a lot of sound, but like many adults do with small children, they're talking at the body, or sometimes they're talking around the personality of that child when the child gets older. But how many really communicate with the soul of that child? Especially as a baby who's not communicating verbally with language and concepts. Well, when we come into this lifetime, this incarnation, the first part of our soul that incarnates is our feeling self. It's the part of the soul that isn't conceptual. It doesn't reason. It comes in and settles out into this area of where the physical heart is. It's kind of right at the top of it. There's kind of energetically, it's almost like a cavern or cave. And that part of the soul resides there and starts to function in the baby body. And it's all feeling. It's enormous level of feeling. And this is where adults, when they grow up, suppressing that aspect, and it gets us into trouble because, whenever a couple finds out that they're pregnant, even those who are wanting to have children, sometimes, it's a shock. It's, oh no, what are we going to do? And what happens? What is it so scary when someone gets pregnant? When there's literally like a threat that there's going to be another soul coming into their lives, another child. Well, all the responsibilities, and we got another mouth to feed, and in this economy, it's difficult. Well, all those are reasons that the mind makes up, but actually what the threat is, there's more oneness, there's more spirit, there's more light coming into this world. Every child that's born, every baby that's born, it's just all spirit. And the body's very small. The spirit is much more present. And so those who get threatened by the little ones are those who, what's the threat is, oh no, I have a career. I have things to do and people to see and places to go, and I can't have a little one showing up now. And so there's a lot of fear that comes up, and this was, historically it was exemplified with like King Herod. He hears about this little baby that might become the future king, and he's going, we can't have that, so let's slaughter all the boys under 2 years old just to make sure that my space is safe. And so in the same way, that shows on a very big scale what we all tend to do. This is what the ego tends to do is wait a minute, my life is going to be compromised. This is the amazing thing where every mother has to go through this, right? Every mother has to deal with death, her death, and it's the death, the only thing that dies is one's identity and what one is attached to. And so every woman who looks at even getting pregnant has to be willing, has to accept that level of, oh, I was planning to do this, I may still do it, but it's not going to be quite the same way if I'm going to get a child, if I get pregnant, if I have a child. And so this is where a lot of awareness is starting to come forth with issues of child abuse and violence and even before abusiveness, it's neglect. Well, when we take our look at ourselves, it's not about the children, but we have to look at children because that's where we learn about who we are and what part of myself, what part of us did we stomp on, did we neglect and abuse and didn't foster care for. And then the body grows up, the mind gets more fixed, we become what's called adults. And as anyone knows, that maturity is not chronological. It's what happens? Well, if we don't recognize that aspect of what we are, who we are as a soul, as a spiritual being, that first came into this body before the second aspect that comes in doesn't come in until the body is formed to about 7 years old. Okay? And so this is why most parents and teachers have experienced that you can't reason with a child under 7 on a kind of a intellectual, philosophical kind of a thing, because where they're operating as a soul is on a feeling level. So you can say all the right words and do, all that, yet if the child isn't feeling you on the up and up, and your feelings are not commensurate with your words, they're going to listen to the feelings a lot more than your words. And so already that division has gotten big, and there's no communication between the second part that comes in, which is the reasoning part of the soul, and that part resides in the brain, in the pineal gland area. And when that communication is already dysfunctional, already separate, what kind of adults are we going to be? One where we think all the right things even, but that part that's already been encased is in pain, is in loneliness, is in abandonment, and that part of the soul is where the real power is. So then we find so many times, so many people are asking others and asking themselves, gee, I have this great vision, I have this great idea, I know how to solve all these problems, yet they don't seem to have the power to bring it about. At least here in this world, it's they talk about it, and they're sincere, they're passionate, yet they bump into walls and they get crushed by those with a lot of money or a lot of political clout or whatever, and they're going, gee, how come it's not happening? Because I can see that truth, but the power isn't there. Well, to heal that part individually and then collectively it's been, in a sense, disempowered, right? The child hasn't been able to, what's the basic problem when a child is neglected or abused and they feel scared and powerless? And what happens, even not in that situation, but what if a child is growing up in a family environment where the parents are fighting all the time? And I know when I was a kid, if they weren't getting along, I would feel not only bad, but powerless. What can I do? Anything I do, say, doesn't seem to make any difference in how they're going at it, each other. And so even in a minimal situation, that's very strong. What if it's really, really horrible situation? It just gets even more painful. And so that inability to have that power, that helplessness and all that becomes so big. So by the time we're adults and that hasn't been healed, then we start to dramatize that and we start to take it out on other people, and that powerlessness translates as, on the masculine level, it translates as blaming. On the feminine level, it translates as guilt. And so it gets often played out between a man and a woman, but really it's played out within ourselves. The masculine aspect of the soul is the part that comes in second, which is the reasoning aspect in the brain. And the feminine aspect is the part that comes in first, that's in the heart, and it's the feeling aspect. And so the feeling aspect is always the side that holds the guilt, that holds that feeling of I blew it, I didn't do something right, it's my fault, and I'm to blame, and the whole bit. And the masculine aspect is the one actively, it's the same, guilt and blame are a pair. And so the masculine aspect's the one that makes that decision that you're the one who did it, even if you're pointing the finger at yourself. I'm the one who did it, or if I were smarter, I wouldn't have made that decision, or if I were prettier, I wouldn't have been dumped, or whatever. And so the masculine part, either in a woman or a man, is the one that makes that decision to blame, and then the feminine part, again in a man or a woman, is the part that holds the guilt. And so if you look at anybody, the guilt is resident in that lower part of the body, from the heart to the belly area, and then the blame is all up here in the mental aspect. And so then, when we don't forgive ourselves, the forgiving, a lot of people practice and try forgiving, but it doesn't seem to work for them because they don't realize that to forgive, you have to let go of both what's being held in the feeling self, which is the feminine feeling self. The guilt has to be let go of. At the same time, on the masculine thinking, reasoning self has to let go of the continual blaming. Okay? So when we let go of both of those in the two aspects of the soul that is resident in this body, then we've let go. Then what happens is the masculine and the feminine come together as one. And the head and the heart come together as one. The spirit and the body come together as one. And then we're at peace. And as we're at peace, this is the bridging of the heaven and earth. And as we're at peace and harmony, which again is about art and beauty, then we'll be able to start to live with goodwill. We can have good relationships with one another. But that's not going to happen unless we have that within ourselves first. And where it starts is between that part of the soul that comes in first and the part that comes in second. That first part, the feeling aspect, is what is being really brought out now in the world. The energy's stepping up. I think everybody feels there's a step up. And things are getting really intense. And the reason it's getting so intense is that aspect of our real deep power and connection to power within us is being challenged. And in order to heal that, we have to be able to address, in the outer world, we have to address our relationship with children, and how do we relate to children? How do we accommodate and create space for children to be immortal beings and in little bodies that need nurturing and education and growth and healthcare and all of that. But also in ourselves, we have to really look at how have we continued to treat that feeling feminine aspect of our being. And when we start to go there, that's where all the pain is. That's where all the guilt is. And that's where all the anger is. That's where all the fear is. And so generally, most of us, when we start to go there, we go, okay, let's see, it's time to, to change the subject. And then we don't go there. We start to want to separate from it. We keep on wanting to distance ourselves from it. And then it turns into physical problems. It turns into relationship problems and economic problems and everything. But when we can face it and go, oh, I haven't grown up. This part of myself, I haven't taken care of. I haven't educated. I haven't raised this part. This part is being immature. This part hasn't grown up past being 3, 4, or 5 years old, maybe 7 at the best. And so then this part is going wah wah. It needs care. And if we don't start to take care of that part within ourselves, we're going to still create wars. We're going to still abuse children. We're going to still be violent, because this is the part where the power is. And those who perpetuate violence and abuse and wars are those who are powerless, who are terrified.
You know what we'll do? We'll play the second Abigail video, and then we'll come back and see, methods to really try to heal that, and bring that, into balance again. Okay, so the second video, Abigail, musical enchantress in the garden. She's just amazing. Enjoy.
Child, can you count to 3? I'm watching you behind the tree. Hide and seek, come find me. I'm hiding, I'm your alibi in the garden. Wait for me, the bumblebee. I buzz about you constantly in the garden. If you wait most patiently, I'll promise not to sing, if you will, in the garden. In the garden, plant your seeds and watch them grow. In the garden, you are learning as you go. In the garden, you will grow. In the garden, child, as you look for me, please keep your eyes as bright as can be in the garden. You might look behind you, I'm tricky and I follow you as you go. If you wish to take a rest, then lay your hand upon my breast in the garden. See, now there you found me, I'm quickly to your service when you wait. When you wait in the garden, plant your seeds and watch them grow. In the garden, you're learning as you go. In the garden, you will grow. In the garden, oh, in the garden, you will grow. In the garden. In the garden, oh. look for me, please keep your eyes as bright as can be in the garden. If you feel you've lost me, just stay right where you are, I'll come to you. If you want to stay a while, just know I look to you and smile from the garden. From the garden of your soul. In the garden, plant your seeds and watch them grow. In the garden, you're learning as you go. In the garden, oh, in the garden you will grow. In the garden, oh, in the garden you will grow. In the garden, in the garden. Thank you.
Hi everybody, welcome back. So that was Abigail again. She was something. So the picture you're seeing is part of the Bridging Heaven and Earth International Healing Art Project. Was Manifest Density by Catherine Buchanan. It's an acrylic on canvas, just another magical manifestation of just love and motion. So anybody who wants to collaborate with us, join with us, please do. So, Michael, take us more from here to there. Okay, no, but specifically, so you stated, basically what the issues are. Mm-hmm. And so how do we heal enough that adults heal enough that they can bring children in with more dignity, with more love, with more, they have to experience the spirit.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
go. Because, we don't. They said I talked too much in the first section, so I don't want to do that again.
Well, with oneness,
Right.
the sound we were talking, you're the ventriloquist, I'm the dummy, and the sound comes out of my...
Brilliant way of...
But, speaking of joyfulness and every little child, until they get it kind of beaten out of them, all children laugh, right? Early on, and so what is it so difficult about laughing? When most people need a reason, a really good reason. You have to tell a really good joke, or something has to be really funny, obviously, before they would laugh. And so what I try to teach people is you have to be able to laugh for no reason at all, because until you can laugh for no reason at all, you're not going to be able to laugh when there's a good reason not to laugh. Horrible things are going on. But laughing is the beginning of all healing. Everything's vibration, and laughter definitely has a certain kind of vibration. And if you go below that vibration, there's, what is there? Anger and apathy, boredom, and those kind of emotional states. There's not going to be a lot of healing on any level until you can laugh. And when do we start to laugh? Well, you have to be lighthearted, right? You have to be able to like yourself. You have to be happy with yourself at least a little bit before you can laugh. And why is it that we can't sustain laughter? Is if, most people, if they've ever laughed for like more than 1 second, they start to tear, right? When you're laughing and laughing, somebody is so funny, you're laughing and laughing, and tears start streaming down your eyes. That's all the grief and the sorrow that we keep in that, this feeling self part of ourselves. That's all that pain and grief and sorrow, sadness that we keep. And it doesn't come out until we start to laugh. Okay? So when we start to laugh, we start to be able to reach that part of ourselves, that feeling self, and it becomes safe. It opens that part out so that we can start to release and let go, forgive all the stuff, the pain that we've stored there. And so then if we really laugh, when we're at some kind of a really funny movie or a comedy show or something like that, and we're just laughing, rolling on the floor laughing for extended periods of time, what happens? Besides the tears coming out, our sides hurt, our face starts to hurt, our cheeks hurt, and everything starts to hurt. And literally, that's the pain that we've stored in the body that starts to get released when we can sustain some degree of laughter and joyousness. And that's why so many people are threatened when others are laughing and they're miserable. That saying, misery loves company, comes from people who are in a lot of pain and a lot of misery. When they're around people who are joyous and laughing, and that's why they can't also stand kids running around laughing with abandon, because they're restricted and their pain that comes out is so great. It's very similar to a person with a migraine headache having to close all the windows and turn off the lights because the light kills them. It's too painful. Well, it's not the light that's too painful. It's the light that brings out the pain that they're holding in darkness in the lower levels. And so when we stuff our ability to feel, because the first thing we start to feel, if we've separated from that lower part of our beingness, our first part of our soul that comes in, and our heart, if we separate ourselves from that, which most of us do between the ages of about 4 to 7, most of us start to really sever that area and push it down. And that's what psychologists have called the subconscious and unconscious aspects of the mind. It's really not a separate part of the mind. It's just the parts where we go, I don't want to be there. Okay? I want to separate from this. I want to separate from all this pain. I want to separate from all this discomfort and weird and uneasy feelings. And so then we push it down like into the basement, and that part we forget. That's what the unconscious and subconscious is aspects of our being that we've forgotten. And we've forgotten because there's too much pain. When we start to laugh, the pain starts to release, starts to come out. Then the healing can begin. Then what we decide up here, what we decide the right things, this will be good for you. But if you're laughing, if you're happy with yourself, then the medicine would work. Then whether you choose surgery or you choose a homeopathic remedy or a spiritual healing or whatever, it's gonna help you get to your healing. And so then when we were talking about, okay, if we're gonna address situations that children are going through, everything from malnutrition to abuse to neglect to whatever, then, like you said, we can't address it if we're not well, if we haven't taken care of those same things within ourselves. And when we grow up, we learn to survive. We cut off and shut down certain aspects of our being so that we don't have to deal with it. And we can. These bodies are quite resilient, so it can take a lot of abuse. It can take a lot of pain, and we hold it in, and we grow up, and we favor success and making money and being popular and doing all the right stuff and everything else to look good out there in the world. But we haven't taken care of this very sensitive, very powerful feeling part of our being. And that is related to, from the heart down to the lower aspects of our bodies. And sometimes if it's so severe, so much energy's been held there, we'll start to be sick. We start to have physical conditions wrong with our body. But even before then, it shows up in our relationships with people where we can't handle being around people, or we can't handle being around too many people, or people who are too this way, too that way, and we start to have allergies to people. We have people who are so sensitive they can't be around anybody. Okay? And then some people who are so sensitive they can only be around this one person here and that one person there. And people who are very psychically attuned and sensitive, yet they can't handle anything. Here they have great gifts of awareness, but in the physical world they can't handle anything. And this is because they haven't managed that very sensitive, emotional feeling aspect of their soul, and they've forgotten. It's buried. It literally is like an archaeological dig. And what do you call that? When somebody has had such a traumatic episode, that they forget, they have amnesia, they don't remember anything about that episode. And it's so completely obliterated from their conscious awareness that somebody comes along and says, oh, I remember when you were this age, this happened to you, and they go, no, it didn't. Or what happens when a person who's an alcoholic, most people who've been around an alcoholic person for a long time would recognize, gee, you have a problem, but the person who has the alcohol problem says, oh, no, I just drink a little bit, or no, I don't really have a problem, I can deal with it. And yet everybody else around that person knows this person's got a serious problem. And so what do, when they go to the AA and the 12-step program, what's the first thing they have them do is stand up in front of everybody and says, I have this problem. Because that person who's got the problem forgets, and part of that experience of not being able to admit it is because when they're drinking, they're not there. The soul is gone. Okay? That part of the soul is gone, and the other part is locked up. So who's doing the drinking? And so then the person who's got the body that's, the body is where all the effects of the alcohol happens, they might go, gee, I only had a couple of drinks. But that's all it takes. 1 or 2 drinks is all it takes for that soul to be out of the body, gone. And who else comes into that body when that original soul leaves? Someone else comes in and continues the drinking. Maybe the whole bottle goes. Okay? And then the next morning, they sleep it off, and the original being comes back into that body and says, everybody points their finger at and says to that person, you drank the whole bottle last night.
So, would say, it seems to me that there are a lot of things and aspects about people now that they're almost delusional about their behavior.
Yeah.
And that's what you're describing. And is that basically they're not there? They're not there,
and so even if people tell them and show them some proof, oftentimes people say they're in denial, but they're really denying because they weren't there. It's just as if somebody hit you over the head with a baseball bat, you go knock unconscious, you're out. And during the time you were out, when you come back, everybody says, oh, 2 minutes ago you said this, you did this. You would say, no, I didn't, because you would have no recollection. And that's what happens to people who have been traumatized or who drink too much alcohol or who get banged over the head. It doesn't matter how you go out. When you're out, and you don't have awareness here in this world, in this body, what's going on.
But so if people are watching saying, if it's not 100% of me, there's a certain part of almost all of us that have injury to that because the society doesn't serve that.
Yeah,
right.
Huge.
So everybody has a little of that. And the one thing you said is laughing is good, being joyous is good.
That's the beginning.
Yeah, right. So, but if somebody said, okay, how do I be open to joy? I don't seem to. Nothing in my life gives me joy. Or how can I, dig to that place where that is, where the childlikeness is? How can I get back to that? What would you say to them?
Well, you had the answer there because...
All right. Thank you.
You said when people say, I don't find happiness and joy in anything in life. Well, where are they looking? They're looking out there. They're looking at what they're doing. They're looking at what other people are doing. They're looking at the world. They're looking at situations around them. And yes, the people who become a lot more unhappy and even suicidal are actually those who are starting to become a lot more awake. Okay? The ones who are really asleep, they glide through all that stuff. But the ones who start to wake up, the first thing they're going to start to really wake up to is the world is insane. It's crazy. How can these things happen? And they start to question all of this, and they start to see it's meaningless. All of this is meaningless, and we're so programmed from early on that you have to find meaning in the world. Okay? You have to find meaning in life itself, not what goes on in the world. That's two completely different things. And you have to find meaning within your own spirit, within the beingness, not in what goes on outside in the world and what so-and-so does and so-and-so doesn't do. And so when we start to discover that all this stuff out here is meaningless, you know, when people start to get onto their spiritual quest, generally they start with, well, money is meaningless, you know? And so they get poor.
Right, they start carrying a gruel ball. Right.
A lot of poor spiritual people. And yet, if you continue along, you find not only money's meaningless, and your car is meaningless, and your house is meaningless, and everything's meaningless. And then you start to find out the things that people are doing is meaningless. You're starting to really discover that all what appears to be, all the physicality, materiality, what appears to be this world, which we confused it with our life, really is meaningless. And just as the masters of old have always said, this is all an illusion, it's all a dream. Well, let's consider that. If this is all a dream, we have to consider it the same way that when we're sleeping at night and we dream at night, right? We all dream at one time or another. And during the dream, we think it's really real. You know, we hit these things, and if this is what is a dream, and I'm sitting in this real chair, and I'm having this real conversation.
It depends how you define conversation, but we'll let it.
This two-way conversation. And so what happens is we believe it's real until either the alarm goes off and we wake up and go, oh, that was just a dream. And if once you wake up from that dream and somebody says, oh, but you know, retrieve it, what was the dream, and get the chair back. And you go, I can't get the chair back. It was just a dream. It's not real. It's not here. It never was. It was only in the dream. Well, people assume that they woke up from that dream to
into
reality. But this is just
Right.
another dream, just like I'm sure most people have experienced within a dream, you know, when they're sleeping and dreaming, they wake up from that dream in the dream, and they think they're awake, and they're going through their daily business, and then they wake up from that and realize, oh, that was a dream. They just went from one dream to another dream, you know, like that. And this is just waking up into another dream. So all this talk about spiritual awakening and enlightenment is really a process of waking up from this dream. Just the same way we wake ourselves up from the sleeping time dream. But the real awakening in the sleeping time dream is not waking up to here. It's when during the sleep, during the waking, dreaming, we become what they call lucid. We become awake that, oh, I'm still dreaming, but I realize
there's a
this is a
consciousness.
dream.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, when that happens, what happens? We become joyous. We start laughing. Oh, this is just the dream. It's great. I can fly if I want to. I can walk through the wall. The things that I believed I couldn't do because I thought it was real, the minute I realize it's a dream, hey, everything changes. The entire dream changes. And if people want to change their life or their world here, they have to realize the more they wake up from this and realize this is a dream, this is appearance, and we're fighting shadows all the time. We get upset about meaningless things. Okay? We give it meaning. We make it important. Wow, this person was my friend, and she stabbed me in the back, and I can never forgive this person, and I'm so angry. What am I doing? It's just meaningless. I'm being angry about this dream. Okay? It's just an appearance. When you start to wake up from that, all of a sudden you realize, you start to laugh. Okay? This is funny. Oh, I was upset about nothing. And the other person will still maybe be upset and won't talk to you. But don't let that bother you. So when you're starting to laugh and you start to reach down inside of yourself, you're starting to recognize, what's the value? What's my real choice is not between two things out there in the world. My real choice is I can choose to validate spirit. I can choose to invest my worth and meaning in what is, the whole oneness of being, instead of divesting all my energy and attention and everything into making this chair meaningful and this dream meaningful.
You know, unbelievably, the show is over. No, seriously, I mean, it's been, we could keep going for another couple hours. So if you want any information about Michael, the art project, bridging, Alan, 805-687-2053. Good night, we love you. Come again, we love you. Good night.